Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 7 2020 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was a duplicate week, and what I mean by that is my against the spread and straight up records were both identical, and with how crazy this week was in terms of all the different results, I will take that. So this week, both against the spread and straight up, I went 7-5 for both categories. That equals to 58.3% for the week. So with the two games today, with the Chiefs and Bills, and Cardinals and Cowboys, I can hopefully get up to 9-5 for both weeks. That'd be pretty good, especially with how crazy the losses were and all that. So 9-5, I will take that. And I do want to make a quick change to both Monday games in terms of my against the spread picks. I'm going to now, I looked at the numbers for when I was doing this video, I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs -5.5 instead of the Bills +3, and I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals here +1 instead of the -2.5. Since by the time I did this video, those were the two new updated lines. So I will take Kansas City -5.5 and Arizona +1 for the two games today. And now overall for the year against the spread, I am 53-35-1. And straight up, I am now 60-28-1, which equals up to 60.1% and 68%, respectively, for the 2020 season. So definitely a downward trend for the last couple weeks, incrementally, not large, but definitely a trend that I do not want to continue, especially with the slate of games coming up this week, another 14-game slate coming up. The buys for this week are the Baltimore Ravens, Indianapolis Colts, Miami Dolphins, and Minnesota Vikings. So if you have the Ravens defense, Lamar, Mark Andrews, the Colts defense, Jonathan Taylor, T.Y. Hilton, Ryan Fitzpatrick, the Dolphins defense, Jason Myers, Myles Gaskin, Cousins, Thielen, Irv Smith, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this week. But what a crazy and wacky week 6 it's been so far. And I want to congratulate the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a very impressive and dominating performance against the Green Bay Packers, 38-10. It was the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career that his team had given up 38 unanswered points straight. He had thrown his third only career pick six to Jamel Dean on the first interception of the game that got the Bucs into the game back 10-7. Then the very next drive, he throws another interception. That gets down to the 2-yard line. Ronald Jones runs it in for 2 yards, and the Bucs just keep rolling from there. Aaron Rodgers had only been hit 9 times and sacked 3 times through the first 4 games. He got hit 11 times yesterday and got sacked 4 times. So a masterful performance by Todd Bowles' defense, and that really shows you with how Brady was playing. Tom Brady didn't have to do a lot. He was 17 of 27, 166 yards and 2 TDs. Congratulations to Gronk for getting his 91st touchdown. That is now, they have the second most TDs as a duo, only behind Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, I believe at 122 or 128. So, congrats there, but it was a dominating performance for Tampa Bay, which puts them, I believe, right in that 2-3 range in the NFC. I still believe, with now how Green Bay performed, I still believe that Seattle was the best team in the NFC. I would put Chicago to so slightly over Tampa, just because of the head-to-head victory. Even though I know Tampa's probably a more complete team and more dominating team, where the Bears are just kind of like meddling and they play great enough defense to get it in one score, and Foles does enough with his offense to win. But yeah, I'd probably put Chicago 2 and Tampa 3. And the Packers, they're still a top 5 football team, but if you notice, if you play a physical defense against the Packers offense and can pressure Rodgers and get him rattled, they don't really compete. If you get a 7 or you get a 10+ point lead, they're not going to win that game because they really can't compete after Rodgers gets rattled in those games. So I want to congratulate the Bucs for that. When you look at the Tennessee Titans getting to 5-0 after another thrilling game where Tannehill had 4 TDs and a pick, threw for over 300 yards, looked very good. Derrick Henry had 250 yards. He's the first running back in 3 consecutive years to have 200+ yards rushing in a game in 3 consecutive seasons. He was dominant. He was basically the difference in the game with a 94-yard touchdown run. And then Romeo Crennel, and I'll talk about some other things later. Romeo Crennel, I don't understand coaching decisions in this perspective. Why are you going for two? And I don't get like Mike Zimmer doing it or Ron Rivera, and I'll talk about those guys with the picks as I move forward. But just these idiotic, aggressive coaching decisions, and that's where somebody that I'm more by the book. I tend to look at scenarios and say, okay, let's go with the more certain thing compared to let's go for the win and risk it all to blow it. And Romeo Crennel and Mike Zimmer over the last 2 weeks, with their idiotic coaching decisions, basically cost their team 2 games where they deserved to win. The Titans and Texans was more back and forth. The Titans had an 11-point lead early in the second quarter. But just still, those idiotic decisions just blow my mind because it's just saying, well, we want to go with the analytics. Well, you know what? I love analytics, but sometimes just common sense has to overrun the analytic in that situation. And I want to congratulate Joe Judge, speaking of Ron Rivera, for getting his first victory against the Washington football team 20-19. They got another defensive touchdown, and I do also want to wish my best to wide receiver. His last name's Ward. He had a very serious neck injury on a kickoff return, or I believe it was on an onside kick return. What I've heard he was immobilized. I wish him the best in health, and I hope he can get back to moving and move beyond football through his injury. All right, so time for my picks and thoughts on each game. So on Thursday, when the 1-5 New York Giants go to the 1-4-1 Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles are 6-point favorites in this game. I like the Philadelphia Eagles here to win straight up, but give me the New York Giants +6. Then the next game, when the 2-3 Detroit Lions go to the 1-5 Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Atlanta here -3, and Atlanta straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-2 Cleveland Browns go to the 1-4-1 Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like Cleveland here -3.5, and Cleveland straight up. The next game, in the battle of undefeateds, when the 5-0 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 5-0 Tennessee Titans, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 1.5-point favorites in this game. I like Pittsburgh here -1.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-3 Carolina Panthers go to the 3-2 New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Saints are 7.5-point favorites in this game. I like Carolina here +7.5, but give me the New Orleans Saints straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-2 or 5-1 Buffalo Bills go to the 0-6 New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills are 11-point favorites in this game. I like Buffalo here -11, and Buffalo straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-3 or 2-4 Dallas Cowboys go to the 1-5 Washington football team, the Dallas Cowboys are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Dallas here -3, and Dallas straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-1 Green Bay Packers go to the 1-5 Houston Texans, the Green Bay Packers are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here -3, and Green Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-0 Seattle Seahawks go to the 3-3 or 4-2 Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Seattle here -3, and Seattle straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-5 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 1-4 Los Angeles Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers are 8-point favorites in this game. I like the Los Angeles Chargers here to win straight up, but give me the Jacksonville Jaguars +8. Then the next game, when the 5-1 or 4-2 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 2-3 Denver Broncos, the Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Just like with the previous game, give me the Kansas City Chiefs here straight up to win, but I'm going to take the Denver Broncos +9.5. Then the next game, when the 3-3 San Francisco 49ers go to the 2-3 New England Patriots, the New England Patriots are 5-point favorites in this game, and one of my bigger upsets of my picks this week, I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers here +5, and the San Francisco 49ers straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 3-2 Las Vegas Raiders, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Tampa Bay here -3, and Tampa Bay straight up. And finally, in the Monday Night Football game, when the 5-1 Chicago Bears go to the 4-2 Los Angeles Rams, the Los Angeles Rams are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the upset here. This is my biggest upset of the week. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears here +6.5, and Chicago straight up. All right, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Philadelphia Eagles over the New York Giants. Look, this is a game where it's basically, to me, it comes down to I'm going to take Carson Wentz over Daniel Jones. That's what this game comes down to me here. You know, Daniel Jones, he had that one big touchdown throw to Darius Slayton, but he really could not do that much. And this Giants offense has been atrocious the entire year. If I can look it up here, let me see. They have scored a grand total of three. They have scored 6 total touchdowns in 5 games. And if you take out Dallas, they have scored a grand total of then just 3, or they've scored a grand total of 4 touchdowns in 4 games outside of the Dallas Cowboys. They actually have equaled 2 defensive and 2 offensive touchdowns in those games. And look, I know the Giants, they lost, I guess Fackrell went down for a little bit. They lost Carter to an injury. They lost Ward to an injury, like I said before. They just really don't look that great. Slayton kind of has an ankle injury that's been bothering him. And the reason why I have to go with the Eagles here is just that this is a game where Carson Wentz, through his ups and downs, he hasn't been perfect, but he's been real gritty in the games that he has played. And I just look at how the Eagles are going, and I understand all the injuries part, and that's why I took the Giants +6. Because when you look at the Eagles' offensive line, basically their entire offensive line besides Jason Kelce has been hurt. Deshaun Jackson, he should be able to come back for Thursday, but we don't know about Jeffrey. He'll likely be out. You now have Miles Sanders, who, when he got the ball stripped out from Marlon Humphrey, he injured his knee, and Zach Ertz left the game with an ankle injury. This team is just decimated by injuries in basically all facets of the offensive variety and some in the defensive. But it's just one of those things where I look at the games last year between the Eagles and the Giants. The Eagles were banged up last year, and they won those 2 games, I believe. Well, yeah, they won against the Giants the first time. They won 34-17, and they won 23-17. So, you know, they were able to beat this Giants team even through all the injuries they suffered last year. You could argue that the injuries are more substantial, more consequential this time. But I just have to go with Carson Wentz here. This is a game at home. The Eagles have been pretty good at home against the Giants over the last several years, counting back through the Chip Kelly era and, you know, through Doug's time. And I just think with the Eagles, it's just something where this is the better quarterback. And Carson, through his ups and downs, has played better than Daniel Jones. And this Eagles defense is really stout at the run, so I don't really expect Devontae really to do a lot. And Dion and Penny, both Dion Lewis and Penny, I don't really expect them to do that much either. And I just feel like the Eagles have to get a win after their effort. Like the Giants just got lucky because of Ron Rivera's stupid decision making. So I feel like with the Eagles, this is a game where they know it's in division, and the Eagles have just played better football compared to the Giants, even though they're only half a game difference. And I'm going to take the home field advantage. Like I said, I think the last time the Giants went into Philly, it's been at least, I believe, maybe since 2016 is the last time, but it's been like 5 of the 6 or 6 of the last 7 times New York has gone to Philly. They have not been able to win. So I'm going to use that, the better quarterback, and just the better amount of grit I've seen the Eagles to beat this Giants team that has looked okay and better than they were last year. But they're still a bad football team, just pretty much all the way around. Sounds like the Philadelphia Eagles here to win straight up by giving the New York Giants +6. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Detroit Lions. This is a pick that I am just going to go with. From what I saw out of Raheem Morris yesterday, this Falcons defense looked a lot better. And yes, I can understand that, you know, it was Kirk Cousins. He threw 3 interceptions in the first half. Kirk Cousins is leading the league in interceptions. But that Vikings offense was pretty talented. It had Alexander Madison, who I thought would do better. It had Thielen. It had Justin Jefferson, who is now only the second wide receiver to have 500 yards through his first 5 games in NFL history. I believe ever. Like he's the second rookie ever to have 500 receiving yards through 5 games in his career. And I also just saw Matt Ryan with Julio and Calvin and Hayden in that offense. That offense looked fantastic. It put 40 points up. Julio had 2 touchdowns and over 130 yards. And I just looked at the Lions, and they played a solid game. DeAndre Swift had a massive game running on the ground. AP got his, AP got a big touchdown against the Jags, running at 35 years old. Kenny Galladay had 4 receptions for over 100 yards, and they looked pretty good against the Jaguars team. They got Trey Flowers at a sack, and DeRon Harmon had an interception on Gardner Minshew. And I know by metrics, like the Lions have played better. They have 2 wins. Atlanta has 1. And I would probably trust the Lions defense here. And the Lions have just been more complete of a team compared to the Falcons. Because the Falcons are just also decimated by defensive injuries. But just after seeing what Atlanta's defense did to a Vikings offense, I feel like the Lions offense is not that much better, if not a little bit worse, compared to the Vikings offense. And I just have to trust Atlanta. Maybe they just gained, some confidence, or maybe they just want to, try to just get through the season and show that they're better than the team that they showed. Because that was the first time all year that they had a fourth quarter lead and pretty much kept on to it all the way through. So, do I think Detroit could win this game? Absolutely. I think Detroit, Atlanta could have been a blip. I don't think Stafford's going to give as many turnovers. And I do think the Lions can move the football. They've shown it in more games than not. But I'm going to take the Falcons here because I feel like they played with enough confidence, and the Lions are just kind of a shaky organization. I feel like the Falcons' talent just outbeats the Lions off of just execution. And if I'm going to have to trust staffs and coaching, I'll trust Raheem, Dirk, and Mike compared to Matt Patricia and Darrell Bevell. So that's why I like dealing the Falcons here -3 and the Falcons straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the Cincinnati Bengals. This is one where Cleveland, through the first 6 games, has been a better football team. One of their best starts since the mid-90s at 4-2. But after what everybody saw yesterday with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, which if you combine the scores, ladies and gentlemen, against the AFC North outside of Cincinnati, the Browns have been outscored 76-13. Baker Mayfield has the 3rd most multi-interception games over the last 2 years. I believe only Phillip Rivers and Jameis Winston have more such games. The Browns' offensive line got beat up. Odell Beckham and Jarvis could not find the football. Austin Hooper was the best asset they had offensively. Myles Garrett got a sack, but that was it. Myles Garrett did nothing else the rest of the game. And I look at how Cleveland played, and it's disappointing because you're basically seeing the Browns, not get into that contender range. They can beat up a lot of the bad teams or struggling teams or whatever, whatever you call them. But if they play the Chiefs, if they play us, when they play the Steelers, they play the Titans, if they play the Seahawks, if they play the Buccaneers, just in the conference, they're nowhere near competitive against those top echelon teams. Fortunately for the Browns, they're playing the Bengals again, who they just beat in Week 2, 35-30. And I do want to give the Bengals credit. That was a pretty impressive performance. And, they have a 21-0 lead to start off. Again, they choked that away, obviously, by the middle. They ended up winning, I believe, 34, or the Colts ended up winning 34-31, or it was something it was some score around there. And look, I got to give Joe Burrow his credit. It was a great effort. He looked great. Joe Mixon, that was an unfortunate injury. He left in the second half and really couldn't do anything, even though Giovanni Bernard did a nice job. I thought T. Higgins had a fantastic game. He had over 100 yards receiving. But I do want to say that for Cincinnati, Zach Taylor needs to go. Okay? Because I know what you're saying. It's like, well, we're the Bengals, and, we don't really have any expectations, and we've been more fun to watch, and Joe's been playing great, and this team's just a lot better to watch. I know. But the problem is, now for 1, 2, 3, through 5 games, he's had one blowout where you could say, okay, he didn't have enough talent. But you could have beaten the Indianapolis Colts with a 21-0 lead. And Zach Taylor and that coaching staff choked that away. That's on Zach Taylor. And if the Bengals want to move anything forward, not if I just mentioned the offensive line struggles that the Bengals have had, and even though they did an okay job for the most part through the first half, by the second half they really couldn't move the ball. Zach Taylor's got to go. Zach Taylor is a bad football coach who only has 2 career wins in 2 years on this staff, and if he only manages to get 1 win, he actually regressed from the year before. So there'd be no reason not to fire him. and get somebody else with an offensive mind or get somebody else to give this team a better shot. And that was my thought, because when you just watch that game, they were clearly outplaying the Colts through the first half. By the end of the game, the Colts defense shut everything down, and just to blow a lead like that, that's just inexcusable for Zach Taylor, who may keep his job, but if you keep just losing these close games, that's on Taylor and his coaching staff, and I wouldn't keep him after this year, especially if they go on the track of only getting one win. But that's my thought on that. But I just also think with the Browns, look, they played this team before. This Bengals defense just gave up, a 21-point lead. The Browns are going to be angry. They're going to be ticked off. Baker has only lost one time to the Browns over the last 3 years. He's played pretty well. They're going to be able to run the ball effectively. They're going to be able to run with their receiving options again with Hooper and Landry, especially with that Bengals defense not being as great as it was. And it's just one of those things where it's just like the Browns are just the better football team with talent. It's like, the Bengals, everybody can say, well, hey, look, the Bengals put up a better effort than the Browns. Sure, and they did. And they've probably looked more competitive in every game than the Browns have in their 2 losses. But the better football team is the Cleveland Browns in this scenario. Do I think it should be a fun game? Sure. Especially if Joe Mixon can come back. That would, that they have more confidence than the Browns, but the Browns just clearly the better football team. That's why I like Cleveland here -3.5 and Cleveland straight up. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Tennessee Titans. This game is going to be the game of the week. Seriously, the game of the week is Pittsburgh at Tennessee. Both undefeated teams. Pittsburgh is now only the second team in NFL history to have started all 5 games with at least multiple sacks and an interception in every single one of those games. They are the best defensive team in the NFL fully across the board. James Conner had another 100-yard game. He's having a good season. Chase Claypool with another 70 yards and 2 different touchdowns, a rushing one and a receiving one. James Washington had a big 36-yard touchdown from Big Ben. And this Steelers team right now, coming from a Ravens fan, I will tell everybody this right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the best team in the AFC. And going into this week, I will go this far. I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are the best team in the National Football League for anybody doing their Week 7 power rankings. That's how good I think the Steelers are. But this game against the Titans is going to be weird. Because the one thing about the Tennessee Titans that I am realizing is that they are able to close games. They're basically the reverse of the Chargers. Where if it's a close game for the Chargers, they'll choke them away. They'll collapse. The Titans, they somehow find ways to win every single week. And it's impressive, and it just really goes to Mike Vrabel's credit. But I think the 2 problems I have with that is Pittsburgh's been more dominant. And Derrick Henry, even though he had over 250 yards from scrimmage yesterday, I don't think the Steelers are going to shut him down completely. No, I think with Derrick Henry, you give him the ball enough, he's going to get his yards. But he's not going to do what he's been able to do pretty much in the big moments when they needed him to. And I just look at this Titans team. If you take out, they have won 4 of their 5 games by 6 points or less. They beat Denver by 2, they beat Jacksonville by 3, they beat the Vikings by 1, and they beat the Texans by 6. And you could make an argument they didn't even deserve to be in that football game if Romeo Crennel, again, stupidly went for a 2-point conversion to try to win the game. And, Tannehill's been playing phenomenal. He is 12-3, and I believe his 15 starts with the Titans. He's thrown 40 TDs and 7 interceptions, and he has lived up to that $120+ million contract the Titans gave him this offseason. I don't think anybody would look at Ryan Tannehill and be shocked that he's actually living up to a $120+ million contract. But he gets this offense. He understands this offense. He runs it beautifully. He's making Adam Ferkser and Adam Humphries and Jonnu Smith. A.J. Brown's been a great, addition back in the lineup. He got the big game-tying touchdown yesterday late in the game. He's not really turning the ball over. And he's using Derrick Henry in a good way to, be effective. And I think Ryan Tannehill is, one of the better quarterbacks and a sneaky MVP candidate that people really have to discuss. But like I was saying before, with the Steelers and Titans, I'm taking the Steelers here because they've been more dominant. And there is one big injury that happened that the Titan player admitted. It's offensive tackle, left tackle, Taylor Lewan, the highest paid left tackle. He blew his ACL out, so he is out for the year. And if you notice what happened, as soon as he went out for the game, J.J. Watt ended up sacking Tannehill and getting a fumble that basically turned momentum for the Texans in that game. So if JJ can do that, just imagine what his brother and Bud Dupree can do with all their defensive front with Tuitt and Hayward in the middle. I think the Steeler team will be able to get a lot of pressure on Ryan Tannehill, and it's going to be a rough day for him. And I feel like with the Titans pass rush, it's really not there. Like they have ways where they have moments, but it's just where, I think the Steelers offensive line, they didn't have the Castro. Hopefully he can be healthy from his abdomen injury. If he can be healthy, the Steelers offensive line should be able to block a okay Titans pass rush, if not a little mediocre Titans pass rush at best. Do I think the Titans can win this game? Sure. And it's weird to me. Like, I feel like if this is a close game and the Titans have the ball at the end, they're going to win the game if they have, the opportunity to win. It's the last drive of the game. But I just have to take the Steelers here. Better defense, more consistently dominant. I think they'll limit Henry, and I just think Taylor Lewan's injury is the difference in the game to me. Tannehill is not going to have any time to throw, and I think Henry gets contained, and that gets the Steelers to their best start since '78 and get to 6-0. I don't know if they've ever been 6-0, but it's been definitely their best start since 1978. I heard it earlier today. So that's why I like the Pittsburgh Steelers are -1.5, and the Pittsburgh Steelers straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Carolina Panthers. I'm taking the New Orleans Saints here because first of all, they're going to be a rested football team. They're going to be rested. They should get Michael Thomas back. They should be able to get Jared Cook back. No, he played the other game. You're going to get Sanders back, and hopefully you get Andrews Pete. I know he left week 5. Hopefully you get some of those injured guys back. And I just looked at the Panthers, and I was not impressed with how they played against the Bears. And look, I know the Saints defense is nowhere near the talent or level that the Bears defense is, but I just have to think, they're going into the Superdome. The Panthers, I know Teddy Bridgewater just, or a couple years ago, Kyle Allen and one, in a rare upset, beat Teddy Bridgewater as a Saint in a pretty dominating win. That it didn't matter for New Orleans because they were the 1 seed, but I just remember that was kind of an awkward game where Teddy Bridgewater played against Kyle Allen and he got blown out by the Panthers in a game that did not matter for the Panthers at all. But I'm taking the Saints here because I think they're rested. They understand now getting Michael Thomas back. That should help the offense. I am concerned about the defense because I think the Carolina Panthers, they've been able to show at times against bad defenses that they've been able to score at a pretty good clip. So I would not be surprised if this game goes into more of a shootout type atmosphere. But if it's going to get into that kind of shootout, I have to go with the Carolina I have to go with the New Orleans Saints here in this type of shootout due to just talent of weapons. They're on a bye week, and I think they're going to be in a great position moving forward to contend with the Bucs for the NFC South. I took the Panthers here +7.5 because of how bad the Saints defense has been and just how inconsistent Breeze has been. Because if you really think about it, the Saints should be 2-3 after the way they played on last Monday against the Chargers. But I think the Saints, look, they're at home, they're rested, and I just think the Panthers, they're going to be competitive. But if I have to go into a shootout, which I think this game is going to go into, give me the Saints here with Breeze with Michael Thomas back, and give me the more experienced coach at Payton to win this game. And it's in the Superdome, so home field advantage helps the Saints as well in this spot. So that's why I like the New Orleans Saints here to win straight up. I give me the Carolina Panthers +7.5. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the New York Jets. The New York Jets are the worst team in the NFL. They're the number one. They have the number 1 draft pick, and they just got shut out by the Miami Dolphins. Joe Flacco looked inept. They could not run the ball. Rashad Perryman was the only bright spot offensively. The bright spot defensively was Marcus May getting the butt interception, which counteracts the butt fumble. But besides that, the Dolphins just rolled him. Fitzpatrick had a fantastic game. He threw 3 touchdowns to Preston Williams. And I forget the other. He threw it to Smythe, and I forget the other guy that he threw it to, Adam Shaheen, for the Miami Dolphins. The Bills, even if they lose to Kansas City, they played this team in Week 1. They routed them they won decisively by 17 points. Then, if the Jets could, cover a 24-point spread, yesterday against the Miami Dolphins, I believe the Bills can cover 11 with however they're going to play. Because either one or two things are going to happen. Either the Bills are going to be incredibly, confident after beating the Chiefs, or 2, they're going to be so ticked off at losing to both the Titans and the Chiefs, they're just going to take all that aggression out on the Jets no matter what happens. Do I think the Jets could, compete? No. I think the Jets, they are going to go 0-16, and Adam Gase is going to get fired, and I believe he will never get a head coaching or even a coordinating job again with all the turmoil that he's been through. And to me, with the Jets, this is pretty much an easy pick for the rest of the year. Whoever the Jets play, even if it's Miami, which you just saw, they're the worst team left, take against the Jets. That's just free advice. And seriously, and even on the line, and these lines are going to get ridiculous and ridiculous, you're probably going to have to go with the line. It's crazy this. Like, the Chiefs game in 2 weeks, the Chiefs game in 2 weeks, look out for that line because that's going to be a ridiculous line. And I will tell you right now, I probably might take the Chiefs on that line, even if it's like 15 to 17 points. Which is crazy to think about, but I just think the Jets are that bad. So kudos for Buffalo. Even if they lose here at 4-2, they get to beat up the Jets again. But it kind of goes back to that point of where the Bills are beating the tomato cans, but they can't beat the good teams in teams like the Titans and the Chiefs. The Raiders are always a quality win, I will say that. So that's like the Buffalo Bills here, -11, and the Buffalo Bills straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Washington football team. This is easy. Dallas, even though I think Washington and Kyle Allen threw for 280 yards and had 2 TDs and the 1 interception. He also had the fumble. That was basically the difference in the game. The guy that got the fumble, I believe his name is Tay Crowder, he was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft this year, and that was basically the difference in the game. But at the end of the day here, I have to take Dallas because Dallas, over the last couple of years with Dak, has been Washington on a pretty good clip. I think Washington's only won the one time, and that was Alex Smith's last start, or one of his last starts in Washington back in 2018. It was Week 6. I believe that was the game where Dan Bailey missed the 52-yard field goal. I believe that was the last time, or the only time that Washington beat Dak in this last run. And I just have to trust the Cowboys' offense. Like, that Washington defense is not very good, and if you have Zeke and you have Andy Dalton moving with those weapons, and you'll see it tonight against the Arizona Cardinals, this Cowboys team should be able to outscore this Washington team. And will Washington put up points? Sure they can. You have Terry McLaurin, you have Gibson, who's not bad. But if you're going to give me the Cowboys offense and Mike McCarthy and that kind of confidence and feeling of like we're the best team in the division, or Ron Rivera, give me the Dallas Cowboys here in every single way. Do I think Washington compete? Absolutely. Look, the Cowboys have not been in any blowout or decisive game at all. So Washington, you can put up points on this Cowboys defense, and I believe Kyle Allen will. But at the end of the day, this is Kyle Allen, not Alex Smith. If Alex Smith was in this game, I could take Washington to win this game. But since Kyle Allen's going to be there, and Ron Rivera wants to brag about 280 yards passing against one of the worst defenses in the league, go right at it. And again, I will say this again. Ron Rivera, if it was not for his first year, he should be fired. This man has made horribly bad decisions through his management. The defense looks awful with everybody there. And the Kyle Allen, Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins debacle of decision is, and then the 2-point conversion too. Like, that one really took the cake for me. Like, that, to me, that was the second worst coaching decision in terms of environment compared to Dan Quinn and his onside kick delivery. Because why are you going for a 2-point conversion with Kyle Allen? Kyle Allen is not very good. He threw on a Giants secondary, which was beat up and not great. And you try to go, it's like, well, we want to win. Well, you know who did that the week before, Ron? Mike Zimmer. And Mike Zimmer is on his way out. And if it wasn't for your first year and somehow miraculously beating the Philadelphia Eagles, which kind of got canceled out by losing to the Giants, by the way. If it was not for your first year, I would fire you quickly. You don't deserve this job. And I feel very bad for Washington football fans that have to deal with Ron Rivera's stupid coaching decisions and his inability to manage games. And again, if he would have won with Alex Smith, if he wanted to win, he should have stuck with Alex Smith. That's all I'm going to say about that. He should have stuck with Alex Smith. If he was going to bench Dwayne Haskins, stick with Alex Smith. You win this game, and you go on a great run that could maybe get the Washington football team in the NFC East conversation. With Kyle Allen, you're just going to continue to lose and continue to suck. So, sorry, I don't know what diatribe Rivera, but that's why I'm taking the Cowboys. Like I can't trust Ron Rivera in these decisions, especially with Kyle Allen and his gambling. His riverboat Ron personality. So that's why I like Dallas here -3 and Dallas straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Houston Texans. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here because Houston's defense is not great. They have had a lot of lapses. They gave up 31 to Kansas City. They gave up 30 plus to Baltimore. They gave up 42 to the Titans. They gave up 28 to Pittsburgh. They gave up 35 to Minnesota. And this Packers team is angry. They're motivated. And I feel like just for Houston's defense, you don't really have as much, besides JJ and all that, you don't really have as great a secondary to deal with. And the offense, David Johnson's really not doing a lot. Will Fuller, Atkins and Akins, okay tight ends. Deshaun had a good game, but again, his defense, let it up. And if you're going to trust me with the talent out there, I'll take Rodgers with Adams and Valdez-Scantling and Tanyan and Mercedes Lewis compared to what Houston has offensively, which is Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller. And also, I'm just going to go with the better coaching. Matt LaFleur is now 18-5 as the Packers head coach. He's been pretty dominant. And Romeo Crennel, though he has made the Texans team better, I have to go back to, coaching decisions again. I can trust that Romeo Crennel was going to make a decision that blows this game, or they're going to make one fewer play that blows this game for the Texans compared to Rodgers, who I don't think with the Texans pass rush, he's not going to be as rattled. And I think against the secondary, which only has really Bradley Roby as their number one corner, he should be able to move the ball effectively against a very bad Houston defense with the weapons he has and the motivation he has from just yesterday's absolute butt kicking. So that's why the Green Bay Packers are -3 and the Green Bay Packers straight up. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Arizona Cardinals. I'm taking the Seattle Seahawks here -3 based on that Russell Wilson and the Seahawks offense is just rolling right now, and them losing Chandler Jones for the Cardinals is massive because that was basically their entire pass rush. So I feel like Russ should be able to make, do Russell Wilson things and run around and make some plays. And look, do I think Kyler, will put up points against the Seahawks defense? Sure, he will. And look, he's motivated from last year. They absolutely whipped them the first time in Arizona. I think it was like 28-10. They really weren't even competitive, which was surprising to me, knowing how, Seattle's defense was even back then. Not really that great. But I'm going to take the Seahawks here. They've been dominant on the road. Pretty much they were off to their best start in franchise history. And I just feel like with the Cardinals that after their first two games where they beat the Niners, which doesn't look that bad now, the Niners are 500 and playing good football when they can. And then they beat up Washington, but then they lost to Carolina and they lost to Detroit. And then they beat up the Jets. So it's one of those things where the Cardinals, a win over the Cowboys will help their overall record, but you're going to look at the competition and go, well, who are they really beating? Not anybody great and not anybody that really, matters. And Carolina, that's just kind of one of those awkward ones where Carolina, Arizona, you could say that was a quality loss, but Kyler really didn't do anything. And I just have to go with the rested Seahawks here, too. Like, they should get Jamal Adams back, which would be massive. They have 4 tight ends, 4 running backs, and Russ is just playing out of his mind. And the Cardinals' defense, against some great, better offenses, have given up points and have given up, some bad plays. And if you can't rush Russell Wilson and you can just stand in the pocket and move around and do Russell Wilson things, that's better than what Kyler Murray can do on his best day against some of the weaker defenses. And you just saw with the Lions, right? The Lions defense, he had 3 turnovers there, and then that was his last home game. I don't think he's going to play as bad, but I just think with the Seahawks, they're just way too on a roll. They're going to get some defensive pieces back, and I just can't go against Russell Wilson unless he's playing Brady, Rodgers, and on the road. So it should be a great game, offensive game. Arizona beat Seattle last year, the last time they played them in Week 16 last year. That knocked the Seahawks out of the 1 seed. I hope that the Seahawks use that as motivation to beat them this time. But I think that Seattle is just too high-powered offensively, and Arizona's lack of pass rush will be the difference in this game that gets Russell Wilson and the Seahawks to their first 6-0 start ever, and Russell Wilson continues to drive the MVP bus moving forward as the front runner. That's like the Seattle Seahawks here -3 and the Seattle Seahawks straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is one where the Jaguars are just really bad. The Colts, for some odd reason, let them win 27-20, and after that, the Jaguars have had moments where they've had moments of competing. Gardner's put a couple few good drives together. Johnny Robinson's been a nice surprise, but besides that, you have a DJ Chark have a good game. Keelan Cole yesterday had 143 yards in a good game, but this Jaguars team is just really bad. It's not talented. Miles Jack left with an ankle injury. Tyler Eifert left with a neck injury. This team's hurting. This team's not that talented. The one impressive play, I do have to give Joe Schobert credit. He did have the one interception on Stafford, but that was really it. And I just think of the Chargers, look, you've been dominant the last couple of weeks. You've had 17-point leads in back-to-back games and choked them away. This is the opposite. Like, you are the clear favorite. You should have a big lead. But I kind of feel like this is like basically what I would say is like Ravens-Eagles to me, where you clearly have a better football team with the Ravens compared to the Eagles, and you clearly have a better football team in this situation with the Los Angeles Chargers over the Jacksonville Jaguars. By the way, this is, I believe, last year they won this game in a blowout 38-10. So they've blown out this team before. And I think this Charger team is basically maybe even a little bit better with Justin Herbert starting compared to Phillip Rivers. But I have the Chargers here winning. I'm going to take the Jags because for some odd reason, just with the Chargers' history, they're going to keep this game close, or somehow if the Chargers get a 16-point lead or about late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, maybe the Jags get a drive together. The Chargers play prevent or soft zones and let the Jags just kind of get garbage time points to get it within that 8-point range. And also, again, this is the Chargers thing to do. Even when they're a massive favorite, they're going to somehow magically choke that game in within 8 points to get the Jaguars to cover the win. But I just think the Chargers, they're too talented. They're at home. The last time they played at home, it was a rough outing. But I feel like the Panthers are nowhere near, or the Panthers are way better than the Jags, and the Jags are just going through the motions of the season now. And I feel like for Anthony Lynn, he needs this win if he wants any hope to keep his job as Chargers head coach. It may not end up, mattering for him, but I just feel like with the Chargers, they have to win this one. They should win this one. But I'm going to take the Jags just because of the Chargers' history with keeping games close and choking. So that's why I like the Los Angeles Chargers here to win straight up. I give me the Jacksonville Jaguars +8. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Denver Broncos. This is one where Patrick Mahomes has never lost to the Broncos. And I have to trust that Denver had one of the bigger upsets of the week, beating the New England Patriots 18-12 off 6 Brandon McManus 50-yard field goals. 6 field goals. I believe 2 of them were 50-plus. Phillip Lindsay had over 100 yards rushing. Drew Lock had an okay game. He had 2 bad interceptions. But the biggest story was Denver went into New England and won a game where the Broncos offense did not score. And the Broncos did not have Noah Fant. They did not have Melvin Gordon due to an illness. They had no Juwan James. They had no Von Miller. They had no Jarrell Casey. They had no A.J. Boye. They were basically just ravaged by injuries. And they were able to win the game that nobody expected them to win. And it gave Fangio a big W in his pocket to move forward with the season as it goes on. Do I think they're going to get the same luck here against Cam in that offense? Absolutely not. You went from N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers, Julian Edelman, on the backside of his career to Tyreek Hill, DeMarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell's first game as a Kansas City Chiefs should be this coming Sunday. And I just think the Chiefs should just win this game easily. But I will say this. I feel like with the Denver defense, Fangio knows how to coach a good defense. And the defense for Denver has had moments where you look at Denver, you look at Pittsburgh, you look at even week 4, but I guess they gave 27. But even week 5, they held the Pats offense to 12. So I think the Broncos defense can get some stops with the pressure they have. They can play okay zone to confuse Mahomes enough. They keep this game within 9.5 points. And I think, again, Drew Lock, he has an arm that can, move the ball to Judy, move the ball to Tim Patrick. KJ Hamler hopefully will come back. Noah Fant should be back. And I think this Broncos offense against this Chiefs defense, which has been prone to give up pretty explosive plays when they can, I think Drew Lock can get a couple of those off to keep this game within 9.5 points. This game should be interesting because I feel like Fangio will surprise people like last week with New England, even though I didn't expect Denver to actually pull out the outright win in that game against the Patriots. But it's kind of that same number and that same feeling of like what I had with New England. That I feel like Denver should just be able to hold on to within 9.5 points against the Kansas City defense that has been known to give up big plays, and Drew Lock has shown that he's got a good enough arm that he can make some big throws to keep the Broncos within that margin. But I think the Chiefs, they're just too good, and Mahomes has never lost to the Broncos in his career anyway, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, or at least this time around. So that's like the Kansas City Chiefs here straight up, but the Denver Broncos plus 9.5. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the New England Patriots. This is one of my upsets due to the fact that I saw the New England Patriots for the first time since 2002. They are under 500 through 5 games, and they just did not look great at all. The Cam Newton had 2 interceptions. Cam Newton, over the last 2 weeks with the Raiders game and the Broncos game, the 2 games that he played, because you can ignore the Chiefs game because he was out with COVID. He has not looked great, and it's a problem, and I know because if you look at Cam's numbers as a passer, they have not been great. So if you look at his numbers, he is, for this year, he is 66.1% completion. I'm sorry, 68.1% completion percentage. That's okay. 2 TDs and 4 picks through the air. And only, it's about 871 yards. That's not great. He's been more, he's been doing it more of his legs, and I appreciate the dynamic of Cam's, but the numbers over the last 2 weeks have been very bad. And just, the first couple of weeks where they played Seattle, they played Miami, he looked pretty good. The last couple of weeks, not really so good. I know COVID has to play with it, but he hasn't been great. Where with the Niners, it's weird. I feel like with the Niners, they came back with a tremendous response. Kyle Shanahan is now 4-0 in his career with Jimmy Garoppolo against the Rams. And Jimmy Garoppolo played a good game. He did not have to do a lot, if you notice. He threw a lot of screens. He threw a lot of slants. He threw one bomb to George Kittle because that was when the Rams defense coordinator decided to bring the whole house. It burned him. But that was all Jimmy did. And they had over 100 yards on the ground themselves with Raheem Mostert, with McKinnon, and I forget the other back because Jeff Wilson wasn't active. But the Niners played well. They ran the ball well. And the Broncos and the Patriots gave over 100 yards to a Broncos running attack that was about Melvin Gordon. And I feel like with the Niners, mix and match of guys with McKinnon, with Mostert, with Debo, that I feel like the Niners can be able to run the ball very much the same way. And I just think with the Pats defense, I know, people are going to say, well, Bill knows Jimmy, but Jimmy knows Bill. And Kyle Shanahan and Bill do have a close relationship. So they can, they know each other's tendencies pretty well. But if you have to give me which team is going to win this game, I probably would have taken New England if they would have beat Denver, even if they would have beat them in the final drive. But they couldn't on a 4th down. Cam couldn't find N'Keal Harry. And I just like what the Niners defense has been doing. That was the lowest amount of points that Sean McVay's offense had scored since week 14 of the 2018 season at 16 points. And this is the Niners defense, remember, without Nick Bosa, without Ziggy Ansah, without Solomon Thomas, without Richard Sherman, without a lot of defensive assets. Quan Alexander didn't play, and they still held this Rams offense, which had been humming, to a very pedestrian 16 points. And I just feel like with the Niners, they'll be able to manage up another scheme, especially with David Andrews on the IR and their backup center on the COVID list. Again, I don't know if the difference with this COVID list is he on it because he was in close contact where he might be active, or if he actually has the virus, and so he'll be at least out for the next 2 games, yesterday's and this coming Sunday's. I just have to take the Niners because I'm going to trust the coaching. I'm going to trust the Niners game plan, and I just can't see after what happened. Maybe if the Pats can practice in the facility, maybe they'll be more active and more prepared. I have to take San Francisco here just because I have not seen a lot in Cam Newton that's given me confidence, especially with Sony Michel on that list as well, or he was hurt too, and just that lack of running a game and that lack of passing attack that the Niners don't pull this out with the talent they have and Kyle Shanahan's scheming against this maybe not Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh going against this very weak Patriot offense. Sounds like the San Francisco 49ers are +5, but the New England Patriots. That's like the San Francisco 49ers +5 and San Francisco 49ers straight up. And in the final two games, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Las Vegas Raiders. This one to me, I was seriously going to take, and I'll admit this now, I was seriously going to consider taking the Las Vegas Raiders if the Bucs would have lost to Green Bay. But after a performance like that against Green Bay, how can you not go with Tampa Bay against a Las Vegas team that is a good team, and they've had 3 quality wins over 500 or above teams: the Chiefs, the Saints, and the Panthers. And I know what people could say. You could take Vegas, and I wouldn't be that surprised. You could just say, look, Tampa was on a roll for the first time since 1983. The Bucs had no penalties, no sacks, and no turnovers. Zeros across the board in every single good category. I don't think that's gonna keep going with against the Raiders. And you can say, look, they're gonna be a bit too confident. They're gonna be cocky, and maybe that's true. But just looking at the matchup, the Raiders' defense is really bad. Joyner left the game again. They gave up 32 to Mahomes. And the Bucs defense, they're going to be able to limit Josh Jacobs, and they're going to harass Derek Carr behind that offensive line with a banged-up Richie Incognito may be back, but the center's not that good. You could get Trent Brown, the former Patriot, but also, that helps with Brady because Brown protected Tom Brady just 2 years ago, so he kind of knows how Trent Brown works his, feet. You have Rodney Hudson. And I just think, again, the Bucs, they just look too dominant. And I feel like with the Raiders, this could be one of those games where it's going to be a great offensive game because I feel like both offenses do well. But if you're giving me the better defense, give me Todd Bowles' defense going up against the Las Vegas Raider weapons compared to the Raider defense going up against a fully healthy Tampa Bay offense, especially Ronald Jones, how he was running 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very impressive yesterday. Yep, so that's why Tampa Bay here -3 and Tampa Bay straight up. And finally, the Chicago Bears over the Los Angeles Rams. I wanted to take the Rams. I really wanted to take the Rams, but after what I saw with the weakened Niners defense of how bad they looked, Jared Goff had a really bad game. The only bright spot was Darrell Henderson's running of the ball. He's turning into that number 1 back for the Rams, the former running back out of Memphis. And I know that the Rams, last year they beat this Bears team by about 16 points. It was 26-10 or 27-10 last year, but that was a Mitch Trubisky. This is with Nick Foles, and the history with Nick Foles with this against the Rams is pretty telling. He was able to do mop-up duty back in 2017 when Carson Wentz blew his ACL out and won the game. And in 2018, his first start after Carson Wentz had a season-ending back injury, he beat this same Rams team with most of the components still there. So he knows how to play this Rams team. He knows this Rams defensive scheme. He knows how to go against the Rams stylistically, and I feel like with the Bears, that defense will get to Jared Goff at a better clip than the Niners defense was able to get to Jared Goff. And I like what the Bears secondary's been doing. Gibson's been solid. Jaron Johnson, the second-round rookie pick, has been playing well. Cole Kmet for the Bears has done a nice job getting his first career touchdown. Kudos to him. I don't like that the Bears cannot run the football, and that will be a hindrance for them. But they've been able to run the football the whole year. But if you're just going to tell me who am I going to trust in this game, give me the team with the Bears that knows how to play close and gritty football games. The Rams are different. The Rams, they're 4-2, but their 4 wins came against the worst division in football in the NFC East. So if the Bears win this game, a genuine question can be said about the Los Angeles Rams. Is their record overrated due to their lack of competition? Because against the NFC East, basically everybody's beaten the NFC East except the Falcons. Seriously, everybody has beaten the NFC East except the Falcons. Well, yeah, except the Falcons, that's right. Except the Falcons. That's the only team out of that entire conference that when they played each other, the only team that's won a game, the only team that hasn't been able to beat an NFC East team are the Falcons. So, for the Rams, going 4-0 against the NFC East is not impressive, nor should it show anything. And with how they played against the Bills and the 49ers, 2 better teams outside of that division, and they lose to the Bears, that is a serious question. And I think you can question the Rams about how good they are, especially with Jared Goff at offense. And again, I just like the Bears have been in these close games. They've been able to get fourth quarter comebacks. They've been in gritty games. They know they need to improve. And I'm just going to trust Nick Foles here in this spot, going out to LA and see a retractable stadium to win this game in a tight one with another fantastic defensive performance. The Panthers' offense have been on a good roll. They pretty much scored 6 points through 3 quarters. I think the Bears' defense, it'll be more like 2018 when they won 13-3 compared to what happened in 2019 when they lost by 16-17 to the Rams last year. So those are my thoughts and picks for this week and my comments on the games. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to see many great other prognosticators such as Andrew Warren, Robert Sports Show, Bridgewater's Finest, Gavin OC4, all those guys and gals that do picks like I do every single week. Check them out for other great predictions. And until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Everybody, please stay safe, stay socially distant, and wear a mask. And until next time, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. So long.